Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, prepare yourselves as we delve deep into Tejano music, its history, its future. You will hear the oldies but goodies, the newies but gooies, and everything in between. My name is Rick Garcia, and I will be your host on this 60-minute musical journey. So let's hear all the great songs by the great artists who made them famous, and a little bit of history behind each song. After all, I was there. Well, that's right, ladies and gentlemen, and greetings. Welcome to this edition of the Rick Garcia Hour. It is a beautiful but slightly cold October morning as I'm taping this show. I'm sitting here behind the golden microphone at CHR Records, and I am drinking coffee and eating chocolate chip cookies, and I'll tell you what, it could not be a better morning. Lot to talk about this week. As a matter of fact, I might get into a little bit of trouble, but why not? Let's do it. I don't know if any of you guys have been on Facebook lately or some of the social media platforms, but there has been all sorts of dialogue and a bit of controversy as to Tejano music. Number one, is Tejano music dead? The answer, of course, is no. And then some people have put out lists, the greatest Tejano guys or girls of all time or whatever, and done a list. And of course, nothing will stir up commotion like somebody putting an official list out. So I have noticed all sorts of backlash with comments like, that's not a good list. Who are they? I've never heard of them. You should have had this one. You should have had that one. You should have had whatever. Then people are putting their own lists together now, which I think is great. And that is living, breathing proof that Tejano music is not dead. But it made me think, hey, I've been around for 5 decades. I'd like a list too. So that's what this show is going to be about. And actually, it's not really a list. It's just my heroes. Let's put it that way. So on this show, from start to finish, I'm going to get into whom I call my heroes. And I guess we'll consider that my list, for lack of a better term. Like all people, I have an opinion. And of course, if I was doing a list on TV shows, it would be Star Trek. And if I was doing a list on the bubblegum rock and roll music, it would be the Monkees. As a matter of fact, I remember in 3rd grade taking my Monkees lunchbox to school and getting beat up. But that's okay. I was a fan then, and I'm a fan now. But I guess it just goes to show that there are different tastes in different types of music, different types of TV shows, different types of automobiles, things like that. So this show might very well turn into a 2-parter because I have too many heroes. As I was choosing songs that would draw me back to that particular recording session, that particular time in history, and all of a sudden it was just like I was there again. I was in a time warp. So, as I said, those are my plans. For this whole hour, it's going to be Rick's lists. I really shouldn't say Rick's list. Let's say Rick's heroes. Let's do that. And I'm not going to play these in any particular order. It just is the way I kind of picked it from my playlist. So rather than delving exclusively into my new label, CHR Records, I'm going to go back to my 5 decades of history in this business with all the great record labels like Hacienda, like Freddie, like Joey, like Supremo, like Falcon. I have had the opportunity to record and produce for all of those labels, and these artists are my heroes. Regardless of the record label, they are my heroes. So let's get started. I can think of no better way than starting out this show with what is and what will always be, in my opinion, for years to come, for decades to come, the official dance anthem for Tejano music. I'm talking about the late, great Ruben Vela and his song, Coco Rayado. Let's start with that one.
Wait a minute. Just listen.
Ese coco que quiere luz, de la palma lo arranco yo. me aventé.
El number one, Rubén Vela, El Coco Rayado. You know, he was in his early 60s when he released that song. Can you imagine that? Somebody having a mainstream Tejano hit at 60 plus years old and a traditional conjunto artist of all things. What a crossover hit that was. He usually had a mainstream audience of, say, 35 or older, but all of a sudden now, Rubén Vela had audiences in their late teens and early 20s, all the way up through, of course, adulthood. That was the broad appeal of that song. And I challenge anybody today to go to any wedding, to go to any quinceañera, to go to any kind of a party where this song is not played. The DJ is inevitably going to play this song sometime during the night. And I am not just talking about Tejano or conjunto events. I'm talking mainstream. You could go to an all-white people event. I mean, so white they look like albinos, and they'll play Coco Rayado. That's how popular this song was. No hate mail, please. Nothing against albinos or white people. Next, I'm going to go back to my apprentice years. Back at Freddie Records, the old Studio B recording studio. Those who have been around Tejano music for a long time have either recorded at or heard about the old Studio B studios in Corpus Christi, Texas, downtown on Chaparral Street. That's actually where the young 15-year-old Rick Garcia got his start. It started right there. And thanks to the good people at Freddie Records, I've had a chance to just participate in Tejano music with so many other legendary labels, including one that I co-founded in '79 called Hacienda. But right now, let's keep it focused on Studio B, Freddie Records, circa 1974-75. The group was Los Chachos de Chacha Jimenez. Although they are legendary names now, I believe they were kind of newly formed at that time. All coming from other different groups, but I have to say, as the young apprentice engineer, I was really blown away by how Los Chachos worked and operated so collectively as a unit, as a band. Chacha Jimenez was on lead vocal, Joe Solis was on bass and second vocal, Juan Solis on guitar, Bobby Naranjo on accordion, and Ernie Reese was on drums. Much later on, Ernie went on to be one of the most prolific studio drummers around. He played on probably half the sessions that I produced, and he was also the drummer for my wife's band, the Hilda Lamas Band, for a period of time. But again, we're going back to around 1974-75. Way before there was a Hacienda Records, way before my wife Hilda Lamas was born, and way before CHR Records was born, there I was recording Los Chachos. This song is a rarity, but a great one. Part of my top list of heroes. From Freddie Records, this song is called Nunca, 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 Los Chachos.
Nunca, nunca pensé que me amaras. ¿Cómo iba a pensarlo? Tan pobre que soy. ¿Cómo iba a pensarlo si eres tan bonita, si eres tan hermosa, si eres tan gentil? Sufrí mucho tiempo, lloré muchas veces, la vida inclemente todo me negó. Nunca me miraste como ahora me miras. Bendito sea el cielo que al fin me escuchó. Yo ya ni me acuerdo ni quiero acordarme de tanta tristeza y tanto dolor. Tu amor y mi dicha, dueña de mi vida, han hecho que olvide lo que ya sufrí. Nunca, nunca, nunca pensé que tus labios me hicieran caricias que tanto anhelé. ¿Cómo iba a pensarlo si siempre que hablabas cayendo en mi vida,
Although it has been over 40 years ago, I remember that song and that recording session like it was yesterday. As a matter of fact, during the recording break, Chacha Jimenez and I went to Whataburger. I don't think they had combo meals back then. You just had to order, a burger and a fry and a drink or whatever. None of this fancy stuff. I remember sitting across the table from each other and we put our fries together and made like a mountain, like a volcano of just French fries. And then as we ate our food, the mountain became smaller and smaller and smaller until it was just a very level playing field because we ate up all the French fries. Then back to the studio for more recording. Up next on this special edition of what we call Rick's Picks is Al Chato Chavarria, Grupo Mayo. This one actually came out originally on the Supremo record label, a label in Corpus Christi owned by a man named Oscar Cerrato. And the official musical name of the group was Mayo 76. And the big giant standout hit for that group was and still is Basta de Tu Amor. Al Chato Chavarria did a great job on vocals. Interesting note, the guitarist for that group was none other than Ricky Smith, who later went on to become the legend of La Movida. But for a certain time in his career, he was the guitar player for Grupo Mayo. So let's check out a version of that song, certainly a Tejano classic, and one that certainly makes Rick's Picks. Basta de Tu Amor, Grupo Mayo.
Acabar con nuestro amor. Por eso he decidido ahora, esta misma hora, acabar con nuestro amor. Y ahora basta de tu amor, basta de tu amor, basta de tu amor, no quiero más dolor.
Tato Chavarria y Grupo Mayo, Basta de Tu Amor. Certainly his signature song, and a very good one it was. Now, we're going to stay in that era a little bit, in the circa 1974-75, and I had a chance to work with another fella who had a group called Los Casinos. His name was Cecilio Garza. The group was Cecilio Garza y Los Casinos, and they had some great recordings out. And again, this is one that I apprenticed in. I can't say I did the entire producing because I was like 15 and I couldn't produce my way out of a paper bag back then, but it was part of a great learning experience. As a matter of fact, now that I'm living in the Rio Grande Valley, I've had a chance to reunite with Cecilio Garza. He goes by the name of Chilo now, Chilo Garza, and he is a teacher in La Joya, Texas, not too far from where I live in Harlingen. He is very instrumental in La Joya, where he teaches, in keeping up traditional music classes. I believe they teach accordion, they teach bajo sexto, they teach mariachi. They really keep the culture going. And a few years ago, when I was hosting the Big Squeeze accordion contest for the good people at the Texas Folk Life, one of the areas where they did hold the contest was in La Joya. And I did reunite with Chilo Garza, Cecilio Garza, and I've got to admit, it's been 45 years since we've seen each other, and we both kind of did like a stare down of each other. I knew that I'd seen him before, and he knew that he'd seen me before. I don't know how we got onto it, but he had mentioned that he had a group back in the early 70s and late 60s, and I said, wait a minute, was that group called Los Casinos? And he said, yeah, how did you know? I said, because I'm that young little punk kid that was your engineer back then. Yeah, I lost all my hair and I lost all my good looks, so now I'm just a viejito. And he laughed and he said that his hair turned all gray. And I said, well, at least you got hair. So we continued to laugh and have a good time. But it was so good to run into him again. And since then, I've seen him more and more often at different events here in the Rio Grande Valley, reaching way back in time to one of my heroes, Cecilio Garza y Los Casinos. The song is called No Más Contigo. And I believe, it's hard to say because at that point in time, I didn't really keep up with what label they were going to come out on. I just remember recording them. But I think I did see this one surface on the old Falcon record label. Cecilio Garza y Los Casinos, part of Rick's Picks.
Eso que llaman amor, mi corazón lo sintió, no más contigo. A nadie puedo querer, con nadie puedo yo estar, no más contigo. Y a muchas bocas besé, pero también comprobé que no es lo mismo. Pero también descubrí que no me siento feliz si no es contigo. Quiero que vuelvas a mí, yo necesito de ti. Es tan difícil vivir sin tu cariño. Ven a calmar mi dolor, noches de amor. Quiero sentir otra vez como la última vez, no más contigo. Muchas bocas besé, pero también comprobé que no es lo mismo. Pero también descubrí que no me siento feliz si no es contigo. contigo. Quiero que vuelvas a mí. Yo necesito de ti. Es tan difícil vivir sin tu cariño. Ven a calmar mi dolor. Ven a mis noches de amor. Quiero sentir otra vez como la última vez. No más contigo. No más contigo. No más contigo.
Los Casinos de Cecilio Garza, No Más Contigo. We're kind of like reaching way, way back. For those of you just now tuning in, you're listening to the Rick Garcia Hour on MCR Radio. And a big shout out to MCR Radio and all of their affiliates all over the world for carrying this podcast. And I am doing a retrospect as a result of all the really cool lists that people have been putting on social media, and talk about a conversation issue, kind of like religion and politics and now Tejano music. My gracious. If you really want to get some conversation started, just talk about that and see who's who and ask who the best one is, and you're going to get a lot of interesting conversation and possibly a fist fight. It is living, breathing proof that Tejano music is not dead. We're not even wounded. We are stronger and more passionate than we've ever been. I'm going to continue on my 5-decade journey of my heroes. And again, around the 75, 76 era, I was engineering a man by the name of Steve Jordan. And I was amazed by Steve's musical abilities. I mean, this guy was so hip and so ahead of his time, you would not believe it. With some music that was very out of the ordinary for back in that day. I have mentioned before, and I played on this show, a song that he did called Ain't No Big Thing. And when he did that song, I was blown away by it, and still am to this day. But he did a series of songs that were just as equally as prolific. And I remember there at the console recording this next song, and the song spoke about Corpus Christi. And we were in Corpus Christi, and Steve was singing about the city of Corpus Christi. The song was called Canto al Pueblo. And it was so hip and it was so rhythmic, and Steve did such a good job. It stuck in my mind, and it still is a Tejano classic. For those who do not know, Steve Jordan was just, like I said, way ahead of his time. He was like the Jimi Hendrix of the accordion. He also composed the majority of his songs. He did movie scores. He did the entire soundtrack score for a movie called Run Tecato Run. And then along with David Burns and the Talking Heads, he wrote music for a movie called True Colors. And who could ever forget his appearance with Cheech and Chong on Born in East LA? That was Steve Jordan. But we've got him right now on the Rick Garcia Hour singing about Corpus Christi, Texas, my hometown. The song is called Canto al Pueblo.
Celebremos en verano, no se te vaya a olvidar. Santos Martínez de Houston, Carlitos viene de Robe, el torero de San Diego, el tigre viene de Milwaukee, Neftalí de San Antonio, de Colorado viene él también, nos visita San Francisco y del Valle viene Tabo. No olvidando Austin, Texas, que es también la capital. Vienen músicos, poetas y también van a pintar. Corpus Christi muy querido,
En verano quiero estar, para estar ahí contigo y pasar felicidad. Ahí viene el lío. Y vienen de todas partes al puerto del festival que celebramos en verano. En verano no se te vaya a olvidar. Corpus querido, esa joya junto al mar es de colores y también muy popular. Corpus querido, esa joya junto al mar es de colores y también muy popular. Corpus querido, esa joya junto al mar es de colores y también muy popular. Corpus. Mira qué linda la arena ahí en la playa, man. Woo. Mercy. Looking good. Corpus, la playa de Corpus Christi me trae un recuerdo a mí. Corpus, allá en la isla del Padre, por el puerto de Isabel. Corpus, al otro lado del puente, en la playa de North Beach. Corpus, cuando llegue el verano, en Corpus Christi te espero a ti.
The man of many styles and many rhythms, that's Steve Jordan, la canción Canto al Pueblo. You know, as I'm looking at my playlist right now, I can easily see how Rick's picks or Rick's favorites, whatever you want to call it, this is definitely going to be at least a two-part show, possibly more. So continue to bear with me because I'm going back to yesteryear. I'm talking about all the artists that I've been associated with, all the songs that I've produced, and talking a little bit of the history and the era in which it was produced and which it came out. Anybody who knows me knows that I can talk Tejano music all day and all night. And I can also talk professional wrestling all day and all night. And I can talk Star Trek all day and all night. Don't ask me how to fix your car because I won't know nothing about it. My standard question will be, well, is there gas in it? And if they say yes, then I'll just say, well, I don't know what's wrong with it. But I have been so fortunate to be able to make my living in the music business. And the fact that I get to share my stories and some of the songs with you guys is just absolutely fantastic to me. And thank you all for tuning in while I get a chance to just talk about my heroes and my favorite artists. The next group coming up, we're going to leap forward a little bit. The dawn of Hacienda Records. It's no secret that my older brother and I co-founded that company together along with his wife Annie back in 1979. And I remember being called to the lobby by our front receptionist. And there sitting in the lobby was a long-haired fella in a t-shirt and open-toed sandals and a cassette player. And I knew him because he had been the guitar player for Grupo Mayo, as I talked about earlier, and it was Ricky Smith. So I said, hey, you're Ricky Smith, right? And he said, yeah. I said, cool, man. I'd worked with you a couple of years ago over at Studio B. It's good to see you again. And he said, yeah, I'm doing my own thing now. I've got something I'd like you to hear. So he played me a series of songs that I thought were dynamite. To be completely honest with you, I thought the vocals were a little bit weak, and he admitted that himself. He said that that was him singing, and he knew he wasn't the best singer, and he was actually thinking about getting a vocalist into the band, and he said the band was called La Movida. Now imagine 1979, the connotation of La Movida. That's kind of like the mistress, the girl on the side. When you're not home at a certain time, and they say, you know, where were you? ¿A dónde estabas con La Movida? So it had that kind of connotation. And I asked Ricky Smith about it. I said, man, that's pretty brave. Would you consider, changing the name to something more traditional, something that's not going to draw so much attention? And he said, no, that's what I want to stay with. That's who we are. I said, okay. Well, to his credit, he was right. I have to say, he stuck to his guns, and La Movida will always be one of the chief contributors to the golden age of Tejano. They were also among one of the early groups that didn't pose in their three-piece suits for their album covers. that was kind of very common in that day. They posed in their biker outfits with chains and I mean, very daring departures for 1979. Sometimes their covers had women putting on or taking off their panties, however you want to look at it. And a true story behind this was that when we were in the studio doing the tracks, Ricky Smith himself told me that he didn't feel he was really the best singer in the world and not really the right guy to be the lead singer for La Movida. I mean, he can carry a tune, sure, but he asked me if I knew anybody, and it just so happened that I knew of a man named Pio Trevino that had recently recorded with De La Rosa Records with a group called Sangre Chicana. And I think Pio was freelancing at the time, and he had done some commercials for me for some jingles I'd written for banks and car lots and things like that. Pio did the lead vocal for me for those commercials. And I said, well, I know of somebody. And he said, well, bring him in. So I called Pio. Gosh, we're going way, way back now, and I've never really told this story on the air before, but it is the gospel truth. And Pio said, yeah, man, I'll swing by the studio and give it a listen and see if I can catch a groove to the songs. I said, okay, cool. So he did. And he sang them, and he hit a home run, in my opinion. I played him from Ricky Smith, and he said, yeah, man, this guy's good. So I introduced them to each other. Pio Trevino became the lead vocalist of La Movida. And for, I guess, about 3 or 4 albums, I don't remember now, but for a series of time, they had a great string of hits together. Pio Trevino being lead singer for La Movida. So up next, we're going to do a potpourri, kind of a mixture of La Movida hits that feature the voice of Pio Trevino. It was really one of the first things that I had my hands so instrumental into creating, because finding the vocalist for the group and getting just the right sounds with Ricky Smith's guitar. Man, he played guitar great, and we did some really cool flanging and phasing on it, something that was so new and so different for Tejano music back in the day. We were like inventing as we would go. So check out this Movida Mega Medley. It doesn't get any better than this. Ricky Smith y La Movida certainly make Rick's Picks on this edition of the Rick Garcia Hour on MCR Radio.
What is love?
Come on, you know it.
Here we go. Here we go. Go, go. Go, go. Go, go. Here we go. Here we go. Go, go. Go, go. Here we go. Go, go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go.
Es amor lo que siento.
La Movida with Pio Trevino on lead vocal. What a great medley of hits that was. And what a great era that was. My goodness, that was the golden age of Tejano right there. Myself and all the crew of Hacienda Records were just so thrilled to be right in the middle of that wonderful, wonderful era of this business. Now, up next, I'm going to play a song that is a classic. We don't hear it too often on the radio anymore for some reason. It's a classic like no other. The song is called Si Quieres Verme Llorar. The singer's name is Lisa Lopez. And again, during the early dawning of Hacienda Records, I had heard of a girl doing commercials in San Antonio. I think she was doing Dr. Pepper commercials and had some regional hits there in the San Antonio area. And I mentioned her to my older brother, Roland, who is the administrator of Hacienda Records. I said, man, there's this girl that just sings so well. We need to see if we can get her. But the fact that she was underage, you had to have meetings with her parents and things like that. But after a series of meetings, we did make a deal to record her. And the first Spanish release that we did on our label, it hit jackpot. It was a song written by Johnny Herrera, and as I said, the name is Si Quieres Verme Llorar. Now, I had recently recorded that same song with Henry Zimmerly, and I liked the way Henry did it. In my mind, I had a little different feel for it. So I got a chance to pick some really good studio players that were buddies of mine and wrote out the charts in the way that I felt the song should go. And Lisa came in and did her vocal to it, and it was just like magical. It was really, really good. And again, I'm getting into things here I don't normally talk about, but since we're talking about history and the way things came about, I've got to mention that there was a little part in that song, Si Quieres Verme Llorar. There was a little romantic break in the song where the singer was not singing. There was just going to be an instrument playing. And I thought of the old Walt Disney movie, Lady and the Tramp, when the dogs are in a canoe or something, and there's this like sad accordion player in the distance playing his accordion. And I thought, I've got to call Tony De La Rosa and see if he'll come in and do an accordion on this. So I made a phone call. Couldn't find Tony, and I needed him like right then, right now. Turned out that he was at a different studio. He was over at Freddie's studio doing some recording. So there was no cell phones in those days. So I called over to the studio and I said, man, I need to speak to Tony like right now. So they put him on the phone. I said, Tony, I'm so sorry to bother you. Don't mean to pull you out of your session, but can you come over right now and do an accordion part in a song? And he said, Rick, for you, I'll do it. So he dropped what he was doing. He was a great friend, my hero, my mentor. He dropped what he was doing and he came over and he heard the song. And like, I think the first one or two takes, he did the most beautiful accordion interlude on Si Quieres Verme Llorar. I said, wow, Tony, that's great. I said, man, how much do I owe you? You did so good. He patted me on the shoulder and he said, Rick, don't worry about it. Just put my name on the credits. I said, wow. Wow. Okay, deal. It's a deal. The song came out and it became an international sensation. At the age of 17 years old, Lisa Lopez became like an overnight star and a household name, really. The song is still considered an all-time classic. And as you hear this song and hear the beautiful rendition of Lisa Lopez performing it, check out that special accordion interlude in the middle and think of Tony De La Rosa. That was the guy that did it. And that just shows the many phases of his talents, because we're not talking about hard-hitting rancheras like he's known for. I'm talking about a beautiful romantic interlude. And that's what Tony did on this song, Si Quieres Verme Llorar, as sung by Miss Lisa Lopez.
Si quieres verme llorar, dime que vas a dejarme, que tú vas a abandonarme y no piensas regresar. Si quieres verme llorar, dime que ya no me quieres, que por otro amor te mueres. Si me quieres ver llorar, si me quieres ver sufrir, mírame que estoy sufriendo, estoy perdiendo y sin ti voy a morir. Si quieres verme llorar, dime que vas a dejarme, que tú vas a abandonarme y no piensas regresar.
What memories, what a great song. Lisa Lopez, Si Quieres Verme Llorar. I kind of have a hard time listening to that without getting teary-eyed. That song is so special, and she is such a great, great performer. I'm really not sure what became of her later on in her career. I believe Hacienda Records had a 2 or 3 album stint with her, and then I'm not sure where she went after that. But I did see her at her uncle Isidro Lopez's funeral. It was a great reunion. I wish it would have been under better circumstance, but Lisa did sing at her uncle's funeral. And I tell you what, when God gave out musical talent, she was first in line, no doubt about that. And of course, the accordion interlude performed by Mr. Tony De La Rosa. Now, I make no bones about it. Tony is my mentor, my hero of all heroes. Everybody that I'm playing here today are my heroes. And as I said earlier, I'm kind of doing this show today as a result of a list that came out on Facebook, social media, and I don't know who posted the 55 greatest Tejano guys of all time, and then other people said, no, you left these guys out, no, you left those guys out, and then different people started putting out different lists, and I thought, hey, I'd like a list too. So I thought, what better way to do it than to do Rick's list? But I don't really want to say it's the greatest of all time, because number one, be happy for anybody doing music of any kind when it comes from their heart and their soul. That makes them champions. If you've got a dream, dare to dream it, dare to live it, dare to make it a reality. That's what these artists have done, and their music will live forever. So for this hour, rather than focusing so much on CHR Records, which is my new record label, I'm kind of focusing on really the history of my heroes, the history of my mentors, Tony De La Rosa certainly being one of those. I guess one of the reasons why Tony and I are so close is because he really took an interest in me for whatever reason. He liked to record at night. And over at the old Studio B on Chaparral Street, I was working there as an apprentice engineer. In the daytime, I was helping with the Freddie record artists. And then at night, Tony would come in, and I would stick around. I learned a lot from Tony. I became his official engineer, and he taught me so much. And I would watch him as he worked, and he would just kind of tell me what he was doing and why he would do it. And when I thought things were good, he'd say, no, it needs a little bit more of this, a little bit more of that. And I really got a chance to understand the world of production in addition to the world of engineering, which is more about getting good sound levels, pressing buttons, and keeping things from being distorted and stuff like that. But Tony was all about the performance and all about the feel of a song. He knew you did not have to have 3 minutes of perfection. You just had to have 3 minutes of something that felt good, of feeling. He would make little jokes that I can't say on the air, but just needless to say, to him it was not about pure perfection. It was about musical feel, and he was right. So we just heard Tony De La Rosa do a little bit of romantic interlude on Si Quieres Verme Llorar. Now we're going to just kind of show you what Tony did when Tony was Tony. This is a song that he did around that same time period, or maybe just a little bit earlier. The song is called Dame Una Cachetada, as sung by only the way Tony De La Rosa can sing it. Check it out.
lejos que tú estés, y por lejos que tú estés, más cerquita estoy de ti. Que tú estés, más cerquita estoy de ti.
Mr. Tony De La Rosa, Dame Una Cachetada from the old De La Rosa record label. Certainly one of, if not the greatest conjunto entertainer ever. You know, I'm doing this entire show based on a list that somebody did on who were the greatest Tejano groups or whatever. I guess we could start a huge, great controversy and say, who's the best accordion player ever? Was it Tony De La Rosa? Was it Steve Jordan? Was it Mingo Saldivar? Was it Albert Zamora? Was it Bonnie Mauricio? Was it Ruben Vela? Was it Valerio Longoria? Was it Gilberto Garcia Sr.? Can you imagine the controversy we could get ourselves into on that one? So let's just say be happy for anybody doing conjunto right now. They're all great. They are all super good. And you know what? They were all so super humble. That's what I like. It seemed like the bigger the star, the more humble that they were. And I've got to tell you, just kind of being real for a little bit here, we don't see that too often these days. I run across instances where I've met a up-and-coming performer, an up-and-coming group, whether it male or female, and just because they did a single or two, maybe a CD, all of a sudden they're an expert. Everybody's an expert these days. Nothing could be further from the truth. Nobody, I don't care who you are, knows everything about this business. This is probably the only business that you cannot calculate on a graph. You cannot base it on any kind of a certain stock market formula or anything like that. It's based solely on creativity, and you never know where that next creative source is going to come from or what it's going to be. I think about it sometimes in terms of the English music. I don't know how many people are old farts like I am, but I remember in the 60s, there was the very smooth sounds of the singers of the day, the Dean Martin, Andy Williams, Perry Como, people like that. And then all of a sudden, from out of nowhere, came the Beatles from Liverpool, and they forever changed the history of pop music. And who knew they were going to be the stars that they were? They came out of nowhere, it seemed like. They changed the whole scene for forever of the music industry. So that is exactly what I mean about the music business. All you can really do is go for a sound and a feel that you think is authentic and something that moves you, and then just hope it'll move the audience as well. That has been my entire criteria for my career as an engineer and a producer and a songwriter and a guitar player, musician, is to go with what feels natural to me, and hopefully it'll feel natural to somebody else out there as well. And I'll tell you what, praise God, because I've been doing this thing for 5 decades now, and I have just had the time of my life, and I am still having it. With CHR Records now, we're up to 14 different artists, and I could not be happier and prouder to have each and every one of them on our record label. But we're going to go back again. This is not a show about CHR Records this week. It's a show about Tejano history, my Tejano idols, my heroes. Now, this next group, I got a chance to fellowship with them just a couple of weeks ago after not seeing them for 35 years. Remember that group, Romance? They had so many hit songs back in the late 80s, early 90s. Well, they were from the Rio Grande Valley, and now I am in the valley as well. And I happened to see the guitar player Mito Valdez and the lead singer Mario Montes and the keyboard player Oscar Solis at a Legends breakfast a couple of weeks ago. We got a chance to talk about old times. They've reunited again. Romance is performing. Heck, hopefully we'll do some recording. You never know. But check out this one from the golden age of Tejano. Certainly one of Rick's top picks. The song is called Boton de Niña.
niña tierna que quieres saber de amor. Eres una mujercita, toda corazón. Eres botón de niña que abrirá como mujer en flor. Eres niña la inocencia que madurará con el amor. Botón de niña, mujer en flor, abre las puertas de tu corazón. Botón de niña, mujer en flor, sigue soñando con el amor. Botón de niña, mujer en flor, abre las puertas de tu corazón. Botón de niña, mujer en flor, sigue soñando con el amor. Eres una niña bella que vive de la ilusión. Pronto una mujer hermosa, madurada con amor. Eres inocencia, niña, y conocerás el dolor. Y serás mujer y completa cuando sepas del amor. Botón de niña, mujer en flor, abre las puertas de tu corazón. Botón de niña, mujer en flor, sigue soñando con el amor. Botón de niña, mujer en flor, abre las puertas de tu corazón. Botón de niña.
One of the greatest bands of all time in Tejano history, that's Grupo Romance, one of their many, many hits, Botón de Niña. As a matter of fact, if you go to my official page, which is Rick Garcia Official on Facebook, you'll see a video clip of them doing that song at that Legends Breakfast I was speaking of. Mario Montes sounds better than ever. Mito Valdez on guitar. Oscar Solis on accordion. I think on the clip they had Juan Guerrero from Los Chicanos playing bass for them. And I don't remember who was on drums, but it was just kind of an impromptu jam session there at that Legends Breakfast. You know, time is running out. We're definitely going to need a volume 2, maybe volume 3. Heck, I don't know. I'm going back to my heroes, my roots. And all this is stemming from a stimulating post on Facebook or social media, one of the sites, that said something about the top greatest Tejano bands of all times or whatever. And it was a cool list. Everybody on there was certainly worthy of being on the list, but there's so many, and everybody has their favorites. It was funny to me to look at all the comments and say, yeah, but you left out so-and-so, or I've never heard of so-and-so, or yeah, but you can't have a list without this person or without that person. And it made me think, over the past 5 decades, I've pretty much worked with everybody who's anybody in this business and learned something from them. And certainly I'm a better engineer and producer from having worked with them. So I know we're already over time, and we will continue this for next week. We'll make it a part 2, possibly a part 3. When we started Hacienda Records in 1979, one of our goals was to be able to be the label for the new upcoming guy. And yes, we had a lot of established people come in with us. Steve Jordan was our first artist. Los Cachorros of Juan Villarreal, Isidro Lopez, a lot of great, very known artists came into Hacienda Records to be a part of the new record label. But we were also the label to give the new guys a chance. And there was a new fella that really had not made a name for himself like he has now. I'm talking about Mr. David Lee Garza. David Lee Garza y los Musicales. At that time, he had Ram Herrera singing lead for him. Then later on, Emilio Navarra sang lead for him. David Lee had about a 3 or 4 album run with Hacienda. I don't remember at this point in time. That was 40 years ago. My gracious. But I do remember one of the early hits of David Lee Garza. It was composed by Oscar Martinez, who is a Hall of Fame composer. He's a good friend of mine. He also wrote some songs for Freddie Martinez and some other wonderful, wonderful artists. But he wrote this song, and David Lee Garza did a cover version of it. The song is called El Tejano Enamorado. So let's check that one out. Certainly, David Lee Garza falls into Rick's Picks, Rick's Heroes, Rick's Tops, whatever you want to call it. He's a gentleman and a scholar and a heck of a musician. David Lee Garza with Ramiretta on vocals. El Tejano Enamorado.
Dicen que me gusta vacilar. ¿Qué me importa si me acusan de esta forma? Si me quieres, manda a todos a volar. Si te dicen que yo soy el mil amores y que tengo una mujer aquí y allá, si me quieres como yo te estoy queriendo, ¿qué más vale si tú sepas la verdad? ¿Qué importa ya que sepan mi pasado? Ya no me asustan estas cosas del querer. Es que yo soy el tejano enamorado, y al fin y al cabo, ¿qué me han de hacer? Si te dicen que yo vivo en las cantinas y que tomo para ahogar este dolor, no lo niego, tú prefieras cosas finas, yo tan solo puedo darte un gran amor. ¿Qué importa ya que sepas mi pasado? Ya no me asustan estas cosas del querer. Es que yo soy el tejano enamorado, y al fin y al cabo, ¿qué me han de hacer? Si te dicen que yo vivo en las cantinas y que tomo para ahogar este dolor, no lo niego, tú prefieras cosas finas, yo tan solo puedo darte un gran amor.
Mr. David Lee Garza from the golden age of Tejano. Wow. I'm going to have to just kind of pack him up and move along. I could be here all day and all night playing Rick's favorites, Rick's hits, Rick's tops, Rick's heroes, whatever you want to call it. That's what I've been doing this past hour and so minutes, and I've barely scratched the surface. I've got so many more that I want to play for you. From the past 5 decades of my association in this business, this industry has been so good to me. It's unreal. I have made so many good friends. I have learned so much from each and every performer that I've worked with. And I kind of wanted to close it out with something interesting. The song that we just heard was El Tejano Enamorado. Now, every now and then you'll hear what's called like a contestación, the answer back. So around 1995 or so, I was working with a group by the name of Jackie y Romantico. Jackie Gomez remains a good friend of mine to this day. And I was traveling with her pretty much all up and down the United States, it seemed like. She did some cool things in Las Vegas at Bally's, and she did MGM Grand. And during that golden age at Tejano, she was a very active player, a very active participant. She did a song around 1995, which was the Contestación. And of course, it was called La Tejana Enamorada. As the original composer, Oscar Martinez had written a Contestación version from her lady's perspective. So we're going to hear that. Jackie did this. I was the first one to do it from a lady's point of view back in 1995. So here she is, Jackie y Romantico, La Contestación, and this one is called La Tejana Enamorada. And until next week, my name is Rick Garcia. We'll be back here with more on MCR Radio.
no me escondo en estas cosas del amor. Es que yo soy la tejana enamorada y al fin de todo que me han de hacer.
Listening to the Rick Garcia Hour on Mas Chingon Radio, MCR. Join us every week at the same time for another edition as we stroll up and down 5 decades of memories and making new ones at the same time. My name is Rick Garcia. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.